I came home without warning on Christmas Eve and found my daughter shivering outside at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. No blanket to keep her warm. My son-in-law's family was laughing, toasting with champagne by the fireplace. I kicked the door open, holding my daughter in my arms, and said 6 words. Before we continue, first let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Rose Lowe from Humble, Texas. Thank you for being part of our family. Now let me tell you everything. I stepped out of the taxi. My heavy boots sank into the thick layer of snow outside my daughter's house in Boise, Idaho. The icy wind slapped my face like it wanted to peel my skin off, forcing me to pull up the collar of my coat. After years as a Taekwondo coach, I thought I was used to any challenge. From the sweltering heat of the dojo to the harshest winters. But this Christmas Eve cold made me shiver. I stood there in front of the warmly lit house, a mix of excitement and nerves swirling inside me. Today I wanted to surprise Luna. I wanted to see my little girl's radiant smile when her mom showed up out of the blue. After so many months away, the front yard was buried in snow. Not a single footprint in sight, like no one cared enough to clear it. Through the big picture window, I could see the cozy glow spilling out from the living room where cheerful Christmas music played from a Bluetooth speaker. The song Jingle Bells, Luna's favorite when she was a kid, filled the air. I stepped closer, trying to peek inside. A long table draped in a bright red tablecloth stretched out in front of me, loaded with traditional dishes. A golden roasted turkey, steaming plates of cornbread stuffing, a bowl of cranberry salad with shiny bits of apple and raisins, and glasses of red wine glinting under the lights. The Thornfield family, my son-in-law's folks, was gathered in full. I recognized Judge Reginald Blackmore, Cassius's dad, sitting with an air of authority, and Mrs. Vivian Blackmore, his mom, holding a glass of wine with a smug smile on her lips. Cassius's sister Serafina was there too, with her 2 young kids laughing non-stop. They were all raising their glasses, toasting around the crackling fireplace. But where was Luna? I frowned, straining to see further inside, thinking maybe she was tucked in some corner. I'd pictured her smiling, chatting happily, like in the old days when she'd wrap her arms around my neck, telling me endless stories. Then I heard a noise, a faint whimper coming from the porch. I turned and my heart stopped. Under the dim light, next to a snow-covered poinsettia planter, Luna was curled up in an old wooden chair. She wore only a thin blouse, her frail shoulders shaking uncontrollably, her messy hair sticking to her forehead, damp from melted snow. I ran to her, my heart pounding like a drum. "Luna!" I shouted, my voice breaking with panic. I yanked off my coaching jacket and wrapped it around her with urgency. My trembling hands touched her arm. It was ice cold, like there was no warmth left in her. Luna lifted her face, her eyes red, her pale lips barely whispering, "Mom!" Her voice was so faint it almost dissolved into the air, and she collapsed against my shoulder. I hugged her tightly, feeling her body shake like a bird caught in a storm. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here," I whispered, trying to sound calm, though tears burned in my eyes. I pulled an extra sweater from my bag and wrapped it around Luna, trying to share some of my warmth. I lifted her in my arms as her soaked slippers fell into the snow, leaving a messy trail. I held her close, feeling her weak breath against my neck. In that moment, all I wanted was to get her out of there, away from the biting cold, away from whatever had brought her to this state. But then from inside the house, the laughter kept going, careless and cruel. I clearly heard Cassius's deep voice, smug and boastful, bragging about something. The whole table erupted in laughter, and the clinking of glasses sounded like distant, eerie music. They were happy, cozy by the fireplace, while my daughter, my own flesh and blood, was trembling outside in the cold, like she didn't deserve to be in that house. Just a few hours ago, I was at the Boise airport, still sweaty from a week of coaching the national Taekwondo team. The heat of the mats seemed to linger on me, even as I stood in the chilly airport lobby. I dragged my old suitcase, so excited I could hardly stand still, imagining Luna's face lighting up when I showed up unannounced on Christmas Eve. My heart was racing. She'd always been my light, ever since she was a little girl, clinging to my legs, begging for one more bedtime story, growing into a sweet young woman whose smile could melt away my toughest days. But my job as head coach took me from place to place. Seattle national tournaments, stealing moments with Luna. Every time I left, I told myself, just one more tournament, then I'll be with her. And now I was here, ready for a Christmas reunion I was sure would make her happy. I sat in the airport waiting area for the short drive to Boise suburbs, pulling out my phone to call Luna. I wanted to hear her voice, make sure she was home. The phone rang and rang, each tone tightening my nerves. No answer. I frowned, thinking maybe she was busy preparing Christmas dinner with the Thornfield family. Called again, then once more. Always the same. Silence. A nod of unease settled in my chest, spreading like ink on paper. I sent a text. Mom's on her way. You home? I stared at the screen, waiting for the little blue check mark. Nothing came. I tried to shake off the bad feeling, convincing myself she'd left her phone somewhere or was distracted decorating the Christmas tree like she did every year. The plane had landed in Boise after dark. I dragged my suitcase out of the airport and the winter night's cold hit me hard, sinking into my skin. Families were hugging, laughing, heading to midnight mass. A dad carried his little girl on his shoulders. She held a candy cane and giggled happily. I watched them, a lump tightening in my throat. Carried Luna like that too. Held her hand through streets twinkling with Christmas lights. But now I was alone, pulling a heavy suitcase, stepping out of the airport with an indescribable loneliness. I flagged a taxi and with a voice hoarse from exhaustion said, "Take me to Meadow Creek, 12th Street. On the way, traffic was slow, the streets packed with people bundled in coats and scarves, heading to church for Mass. I stared out the taxi window at the warm lights glowing from houses along the road. Church bells rang faintly in the distance, mixed with a choir singing Silent Night somewhere nearby. I smiled, picturing Luna busy in the kitchen, making the mashed potatoes she'd learned from me. When the car stopped at an intersection, I glanced outside and spotted a group of cops directing traffic. Among them, I recognized Phoenix, a former student from my days teaching Taekwondo at the local community center. He stood tall, confident in his police uniform, but still had that same kind smile. I rolled down the window and shouted, "Phoenix!" He turned, his eyes lighting up as he recognized me. "Miss Zara, you're back," he exclaimed, adjusting his police cap. I smiled, trying to hide my exhaustion. "Yeah, just finished training in Seattle. You still working in Boise?" Phoenix nodded, his smile bright. "Yep, traffic cop now. You here for Christmas with family?" "With Luna," I said, my heart warming at the mention of my daughter. But then Phoenix's face froze. His smile faded. A flicker of doubt passed through his eyes like he wanted to say something but couldn't. A bad feeling sparked in me like a flame starting to spread. "What's wrong, Phoenix? Something up?" I asked, lowering my voice. He shook his head, forcing a smile. No, it's nothing, Ms. Zara. Just glad you're back." But his eyes betrayed worry. I wanted to press him, but the light turned green. The driver hit the gas and the car pulled away, leaving Phoenix watching me from the street, gripping the brim of his cap tightly. As we neared Luna's house, I asked the driver to stop a short distance from the gate. I wanted to surprise them, to see Luna's face when she found me standing at the door. I grabbed my suitcase and walked through the snow-covered path, my boots leaving deep prints. The golden glow from the houses around shone like lit candles. From a distance, I heard a guitar and singing coming from Luna's living room. I smiled, picturing her singing like when she was a kid, standing by my side, belting out Winter Wonderland with that clear voice. I left my suitcase on the step, took a deep breath and got ready to knock. But then a mocking laugh cut through the air, sharp as a knife. Froze. My hand hovered, not touching the door. Judge Reginald Blackmore's deep, gruff voice boomed clearly. "That's what they call a daughter-in-law. A woman who can't even have kids. For miscarriages. Haven't they embarrassed us enough? His laugh was heavy, dripping with contempt. Then Cassius's voice, cold and cruel, chimed in. Always faking depression, locking herself in her room to do nothing. If it weren't for my parents, I'd have kicked her out ages ago. Another laugh erupted, followed by the clinking of wine glasses. I heard Serafina, Cassius's sister, her tone venomous. Yeah, totally useless. A wife who can't have kids. What's she good for? Pretending to be sick just to get coddled. Pathetic. Each word stabbed my heart. I stood there paralyzed. My breath caught in my throat. This was how they treated my Luna, my daughter, who dreamed of a happy family, who poured her heart into every meal for her husband. Now they were humiliating her like this. For miscarriages, each one leaving her sobbing until she had no tears left during our phone calls. And now they said she was faking it. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. And that's when I saw Luna curled up in a wooden chair on the porch in just a thin blouse, her head bowed, her whole body trembling in the freezing cold. My eyes blurred with tears. My heart stopped. I scooped Luna into my arms. Her body was still shaking, cold as a block of ice. My hands trembled too, not just from the bitter Boise night, but from the rage burning in my chest. Each step toward the Thornfields' door felt like it carried 1,000 pounds. But I didn't stop. I pounded on the wooden door, my knocks firm, drowning out the Christmas music blaring inside. Jingle bells looped over and over, mocking the painful scene I just witnessed. No one came to open it. I gritted my teeth and banged harder like I wanted to knock the door down in one blow. Finally, the door swung open. Mrs. Vivian stood there, a glass of red wine wobbling in her hand. Her lips painted bright red, glossy under the light. The smell of alcohol wafted from her, but her face wore a forced smile, trying to seem polite. "Hey, Ms. Zara, what a surprise," she said, her voice syrupy but fake like I was an unwelcome guest. "Why didn't you let us know so we could roll out the red carpet?" I locked eyes with her, not bothering to hide my anger. "Let you know," I growled, each word hissing through my teeth. "If I'd let you know, how would I have seen this? What did you do to my daughter?" I held Luna tighter, feeling her faint breath against my shoulder. Each breath was a reminder I couldn't let this slide. Vivian raised an eyebrow, glancing at Luna in my arms with a grimace, like she was looking at something annoying. "Luna just wanted some fresh air," she said, her tone soft but laced with contempt. "Don't make a big deal out of it. It's Christmas. Come in. Don't stand out in the cold." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Fresh air. While my daughter was practically freezing outside in a thin blouse. Before I could respond, Cassius appeared behind his mother, his shirt unbuttoned, exuding deliberate nonchalance. He held a bottle of wine and shot me a defiant look. "Mom, close the door," he said, his tone dripping with arrogance, chin raised. "Let her stay out there till she gets over it. Who shows up to Christmas dinner acting all fragile to get out of helping?" He let out a mocking chuckle like he'd said something clever. Those words were another knife, not just in my heart, but in Luna's. I felt her body shrink in my arms like she wanted to vanish. From the table, Serafina's voice rang out sharp and venomous. "Exactly. A woman who can't even carry a baby to term. What's she worth? Useless." Her laugh cut like a blade, mixing with the murmurs of others around the table. I heard Serafina's 2 kids, Luna's cousins, run out to the porch, curious. They looked at Luna in my arms, then giggled, whispering to each other, "Aunt Luna's in trouble." Their innocent little voices burned like salt in an open wound. My face flushed with rage. I rammed my shoulder into the door, then kicked it hard. The door flew open, slamming against the wall with a bang that silenced the room. Vivian's wine sloshed, spilling red stains onto the expensive rug. The Christmas music stopped abruptly, like someone had yanked the speaker's plug. The air in the room turned heavy, suffocating, like all the oxygen had been sucked out. I stepped into the center of the living room, still holding Luna. Each step left a trail of melted snow on the hardwood floor, like marks of rage that couldn't be erased. Every eye was on me. Judge Reginald, his face cold. Vivian, her fake smile gone. Serafina, her eyes full of disdain. The rest of the family, a mix of shock and annoyance. I felt their hostility in every glance, but I didn't care. Carefully, I settled Luna on the couch, draping my scarf over her shoulders. Her hands were still icy, trembling like the snow's cold still clung to her. I knelt, looking into her eyes, trying to give her some of my strength, though inside I was a storm of fury and pain. The Thornfields' living room was still brightly lit. The fireplace crackled, but the atmosphere was thick like everyone was bracing for an explosion. Cassius stepped closer, his face red from the wine, his eyes gleaming with arrogance. He lowered his voice, cold but still smug like he owned the place. "You don't get to make a scene in my house, Zara," he said, emphasizing my house like he was reminding me I was an outsider. Cassius stood tall, one hand on his hip, his shirt half unbuttoned in a gesture of contempt. But in his eyes, I caught a flicker of uncertainty. He knew I wasn't someone easily intimidated. I shot to my feet, pointing straight at his face, my voice trembling with fury. "No right. Snap. And you think you have the right to throw my daughter out into the cold? To let her nearly freeze to death?" My blood boiled in my head. Every word exploded from my chest. "Is that what you call a husband? Is that what you call family?" I glanced around at the banquet table, the plates still steaming, the wine glasses glinting like they were mocking Luna's suffering. Judge Reginald Blackmore rose slowly from the head of the table, adjusting his suit jacket, his deep voice resonating with authority. "That's enough, Ms. Zara," he said. "This is a family matter. A woman who can't bear children needs to learn to endure. That's just how it is." His words hit like a sledgehammer, cold and cruel. I locked eyes with him, seeing the arrogance of a man who'd spent years as a judge, used to controlling everything. But today he'd picked the wrong opponent. I glanced at the table where the roasted turkey still wafted its aroma, the cornbread stuffing neatly arranged, the wine sparkling under the lights. Then I looked at Luna, still shivering on the couch, her stomach faintly growling like a silent accusation. I couldn't hold back anymore. My voice erupted, sharp and cutting. "So you feast while my daughter's outside in 32 degrees weather. No coat, no food. That's what you call tradition. That's what you call humanity." Vivian shrugged, her smile icy, like I was blowing things out of proportion. "A woman who can't have kids, even if she eats, is just a waste," she said softly, her voice dripping with disdain. She raised her wine glass and took a sip, as if to show she didn't care one bit about my feelings or Luna's. Serafina chimed in from the table, her tone acidic, rubbing salt in the wound. "Your daughter always uses depression as an excuse to avoid work," she said. "In all this time, has she ever cooked a decent meal for the family? All she does is lie in bed whining, dragging everyone down." She shook her head, her eyes full of mockery, like Luna was a burden the whole Thornfield family had to bear. Murmurs from the relatives around the table grew louder. Some shook their heads, others snickered as if they agreed with those venomous words. Every sound, every sidelong glance pierced my chest like another stab. I wanted to flip that fancy table over to demand justice for my daughter. But then a faint voice came from the couch. Luna, my little girl, had stirred. She tried to sit up, her trembling hands gripping the edge of the couch. "I'm so tired," she stammered, her voice breaking, barely audible. "No one understands." Her words were crushed instantly by Cassius's shout. "Enough," he barked. "Shut up. You've embarrassed me enough already." He stepped toward her, his gaze icy, like he wanted to shatter what little strength she had left. I saw Luna's shoulders slump, her red eyes brimming with tears, and my heart tightened. I stepped in front of her, ready to do whatever it took to protect her. Memories of Luna flooded my mind like an avalanche. I remembered the days she'd call me, sobbing over the phone. Each time she lost a child, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. With every miscarriage, her soul broke into pieces. She'd been a sweet girl who dreamed of a warm home, family dinners with her husband and kids. But the pain over and over had pushed her to the edge of despair. I tried to be there for her, even through long-distance calls. But I never imagined the Thornfield family, the ones I trusted, would treat my daughter like this. Cassius, my son-in-law, who I once thought was a decent man, now showed his true face. A cruel bully who cast my daughter out into the cold, treating her like garbage. I was on the verge of losing it. Through the window, I saw Phoenix standing silently on the porch. Maybe he'd been patrolling the neighborhood. His hard gaze and clenched fist showing he'd heard and witnessed this cruelty. I gave him a slight nod, signaling him not to step in just yet. But inside, his presence was a ray of hope. I knew I wasn't alone. I had a witness, someone who knew the truth. Cassius took another step, pointing at me, dropping the mask of politeness. "I'm warning you. This is my house," he said. "Stay out of it or things will get worse." He smirked, convinced I'd back down under the Thornfield family's power. He was wrong. I clenched my fists, my knuckles cracking, feeling all the rage I'd bottled up in my life explode in that moment. The air in the room was so thick it felt like a single spark could set it all ablaze. I locked eyes with Cassius, my voice low but sharp as a knife. "You think you can threaten me? You think you can keep hurting my daughter without paying a price? You're wrong, Cassius. I'm not letting this go." I turned to the whole Thornfield family, from Judge Reginald's cold stare to Vivian's faint smirk to Seraphina's disdainful glare. "All of you," I said, my voice echoing in the silent room. "You're going to pay for what you did to Luna." The Thornfields' living room fell into a terrifying silence, like the air had been sucked out, leaving only a thick tension ready to explode. I placed my hand on Luna's shoulder, feeling her frail frame under the scarf, my voice steady and unwavering. "This isn't a private matter anymore. This is domestic abuse." My words landed like a stone in a still lake, rippling through everyone in the room. Vivian, still holding her wine glass, let out a mocking laugh, swirling it like she was enjoying a joke. "Abuse," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm and arrogance. "We're just teaching her her place, Zara. You should thank us for putting up with her this long." Cassius stepped closer, his eyes red from alcohol and rage. He spat his words like he was chewing each one before letting it out. "She fakes depression. Fakes pain to do nothing. No one's hitting her. We're just sick of her uselessness." He paused, staring at me with a twisted smile. "Teach your daughter again, Zara. Nobody loses 4 pregnancies in a row. Maybe she did it on purpose." Those words were like a razor blade. They didn't just cut my heart. They tore open Luna's unhealed wounds. I heard her breath catch like she'd been punched in the chest. For miscarriages. For times she called me sobbing, her voice broken, saying she'd lost the children she could never hold. Each time I could only clutch the phone, helpless from afar, trying to comfort her with empty words. And now Cassius dared to stand in front of me and say she'd done it on purpose. I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palm, blood rushing to my face. He'd crossed a line I couldn't forgive. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket. My hand shook, but I quickly dialed the nearest police station. "I'm calling the cops," I said, my voice cold as ice, though inside I was a hurricane. "A report will be filed. You'll answer to the law." I emphasized each word like I was carving them into the air, making sure everyone knew I wasn't bluffing. Cassius froze. The wine bottle slipped from his hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor, red wine staining the expensive rug. Panic flashed in his eyes, though he tried to regain his air of superiority. "You wouldn't dare," he shouted, but his voice wavered like he hadn't expected me to go this far. Judge Reginald, who'd been watching with a cold expression, stepped forward, adjusting his tie. His deep, gravelly voice booming with authority. "You have no idea who you're challenging, Zara," he said. "I've spent my life on the judge's bench. I've seen the worst this world has to offer. You think a phone call will make us tremble?" His eyes were sharp as knives, reminding me the Thornfield family wasn't easily shaken. But I didn't back down. I'd seen my daughter shivering in the cold, and nothing, not even Judge Reginald's power, would silence me. Serafina from the table crossed her arms and let out a mocking smile. "Go ahead, make the call, Ms. Zara," she said, her tone taunting. "Let's see who they believe. A crazy old lady or a respected family like ours? You think the police will side with you?" Her venomous laugh rang out, confident I'd fail. Luna, still on the couch, tugged at my sleeve, her voice trembling in a whisper. "Mom, please don't do it. I just want peace." Her red eyes, full of fear, seemed to say she was terrified things would get worse. I looked at her, my heart aching. I knew she was scared. Scared of the Thornfields' retaliation, of more humiliation piling on. But I also knew if I stopped now, Luna would be trapped in this pain forever. I squeezed her hand tightly, trying to pass her some of my courage. "You don't have to be afraid," I said softly but firmly. "I'll protect you. I promise." I lifted her in my arms, snow from her clothes falling onto the rug like pieces of a shattered dream. I ignored the Thornfields' scornful glares and their muttered threats. All I knew was I had to get her out of that place, out of that cage of cruelty she'd been locked in for too long. As I turned toward the door, I saw Phoenix through the foggy glass, standing on the porch. His hand rested on his radio, his eyes burning with a hidden fire, ready to act at any moment. I gave him a slight nod, enough to let him know I was ready for the fight. Phoenix nodded back firmly, his hand still gripping the radio like a promise he'd stand by me. I walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard Vivian yelling at the housekeeper to clean the spilled wine on the rug. I heard Cassius slam his hand on the table, muttering a curse. Then Judge Reginald's deep, angry voice echoed as he called someone on the phone. All those sounds were like arrows piercing my back, but I didn't care. I took Luna to my small apartment near the National Training Center where I'd lived for years as a coach. It wasn't fancy, just a living room with an old couch, a simple kitchen in the corner, and a few family photos on the wall. But to me, it was a safe place where I could shield my girl from the Thornfields' insults and the cruel cold. I carried Luna to her room and gently settled her on the bed. She was still shivering, though wrapped in my thick coat. I dug through the closet for an old sweater, put it on her, then made a mug of hot cocoa, its sweet aroma filling the chilly air. "Drink this, sweetheart," I whispered, placing the mug in her hands. But she just stared at it, her eyes empty, like she didn't believe she deserved even a bit of warmth. My phone rang, cutting through my thoughts. It was Phoenix. His voice was deep and steady. "Ms. Zara, I just filed the initial report at the station, but the Thornfields won't go down easy. They've got influence. You know that. I'm ready to testify as a witness if you need me." I felt the determination in his tone, like a small flame that never dies. Phoenix, my old student, the one who once stood in the dojo with bright eyes, was now by my side in a different kind of fight. "Help me prepare, Phoenix," I said, my voice brief but full of gratitude. "This could be a long battle." He replied with a simple, "I got it, coach. I'm here." The next morning, I took Luna to a therapist in downtown Boise. Dr. Iris Waverly, an older woman with a kind gaze, welcomed us into a cozy office. After talking with Luna, she looked at me, her voice heavy and sad. "She's suffering from severe depression, Miss Zara. 4 miscarriages combined with constant insults from her in-laws have crushed her confidence. She needs rest, treatment, and above all to feel safe." I nodded, my heart tightening. I knew Luna wasn't okay, but hearing it from the therapist felt like another stab. I looked at her, curled up in the chair, her hands clasped tightly, and blamed myself for not being there sooner. That afternoon, Phoenix stopped by the apartment out of his police uniform, carrying a bag of fruit and some old cookbooks. He set them in front of Luna, hesitating. "I know you like cooking," he said. "Thought maybe starting small like a pie or some chicken noodle soup might make you feel better." His voice was gentle, but I saw the worry in his eyes. Luna lowered her head, clutching the edge of her blouse, and murmured, "Thanks, but I don't think I can do anything anymore." Her words pierced my chest like a needle. Phoenix's face fell for a moment, but he didn't push her, just nodded quietly. He left the bag on the table and turned to me. "Ms. Zara, whatever you need, just say it. I've got your back." That night, after Luna was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table under the dim light. Surrounded by papers, I heard a noise outside, then saw a thick envelope slide under the door, silent as a quiet threat. Opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, the letters messy. "Don't mess with the Thornfield family if you don't want to end up as miserable as your daughter. Give up." My blood boiled as I read it. I crumpled the paper and threw it hard into the trash, the sound breaking the silence. That threat didn't scare me. It only fueled me. They thought I'd back down. They were wrong. That same night, I started organizing all the proof of money I'd sent Luna over the years. Bank receipts, messages with my notes of love. Each was evidence I'd always tried to support her. Even though Cassius and his family had squandered most of it, every paper was a memory. Times. Luna called, her voice shaky, saying she wanted to buy something for the house, only for Cassius to tell her it wasn't needed. I gripped the pen so hard it nearly snapped. I trusted Cassius. I thought he'd take care of my daughter, but he only saw her as a tool, and when she stopped being useful, he discarded her without mercy. Luna woke up in the middle of the night. She stumbled out of her room, legs trembling, and saw me at the table, buried in papers, my eyes tired but full of fear. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm scared. I'm scared they'll do something to you." I looked up, saw her red eyes, and felt my heart being squeezed. I stood, walked to her, and hugged her, feeling her fragile body in my arms. "You don't have to be afraid," I said firmly, though inside I was a knot of nerves. "From now on, I'm the one who will protect you from everything. Promise." I took Luna back to bed, staying by her side until she fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep. I returned to the kitchen table, kept sorting papers, and made a list of what needed to be done. I called an old lawyer friend who'd helped me with a case tied to the Taekwondo team. He promised to look into it but warned me, "The Thornfields have a lot of pull in Boise, Miss Zara. They know people in the courts. Get ready for a long fight." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "I know," I said, "but I'm not stopping." The weeks preparing the case felt like an endless nightmare. Every night, under the dim lamp in my small apartment, I reviewed page after page, rereading every bank receipt, every medical report about Luna. Those cold numbers and letters were proof of my love for my daughter, but also a painful reminder of everything she'd suffered. Finally, the first day of the trial came, and I felt like I was stepping onto a Taekwondo mat. Luna and I entered the Boise courthouse. The morning chills seeped through my thick coat. I held her hand, feeling her icy fingers tremble in my palm. Her eyes were red with dark circles showing sleepless nights. She kept her head down like she wanted to hide from the stares. I stood tall, trying to be her rock, though inside I was just as shaken. "I'm here," I whispered, squeezing her hand gently. She nodded weakly, but her empty eyes showed she'd given up the fight long ago. The Thornfield family was already there early. Cassius, in a sharp gray suit, carried himself like a confident lawyer. Before the trial, he sat, adjusted his tie, and shot us a scornful glance. Next to him was Judge Reginald, walking slowly but with a gaze sharp as a blade. He flashed a confident smile, like he already knew the outcome. In the family row, Vivian and Serafina sat primly, dressed elegantly, whispering occasionally, throwing us looks. I felt their hostility in every gesture, but I forced myself to stay calm, reminding myself today wasn't my fight. It was Luna's. Phoenix was there too, sitting in the spectator section in his police uniform. He gave me a slight nod, his steady gaze like a promise he wouldn't abandon us. His presence made me feel less alone, like I had an ally in this battle. I nodded back, silently thanking him for being there from that terrifying Christmas Eve to this day. The trial began. My lawyer, Atlas Kane, stood and presented each piece of evidence clearly. He showed the bank transfers I'd sent Luna over the years, proving I'd always supported her, though most of that money ended up in Cassius's hands. He also presented Luna's medical records with detailed notes from the therapist about her depression. After 4 miscarriages and constant insults from her husband's family, Luna didn't just suffer physically. She was emotionally destroyed, Atlas said, his voice thick with emotion. They treated her like an outsider in her own home. I looked at Luna, her head bowed, hands clasped tightly like she was trying to hold in the pain. I wanted to stand and hug her, but I knew I had to stay strong and let the lawyer do his job. Then the young lawyers for the Thornfield family stood up, and I felt injustice creeping into the courtroom. One of them, in a sleek black suit, spoke with a commanding voice. Luna's just faking illness to be coddled. The Thornfield family gave her everything. Shelter, food, every need met. But she didn't hold up her end. She failed as a wife. Those words slapped me across the face. Faking coddled. I clenched my fist so hard I felt my blood boil. They called a witness, Cordelia Vale, the Thornfield's former housekeeper. She took the stand, eyes darting, voice shaky. Mrs. Luna was lazy, she said. She'd lock herself in her room all day, neglecting the house. I had to do everything. Cooking, cleaning. I couldn't believe my ears. Luna, the same woman who lovingly prepared every meal, who made homemade pies to please the whole family, now branded as lazy. I shot to my feet, unable to hold back. You're lying. Luna was never like that. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern face, slammed his gavel and said coldly, "Silence, please. This is a courtroom." I sat back down, my heart racing, feeling like I couldn't breathe. I glanced at Judge Reginald Blackmore. He smiled, a subtle, smug nod to the judge. An invisible thread between them chilled my skin. Something wasn't right. I felt it clearly. They'd planned this day, and I was just a pawn in their chess game. Luna stayed hunched over, her trembling hands gripping the chair's edge. I saw Phoenix in the back row, jaw clenched, fists tight, like he was fighting to contain his own fury. Atlas Kane, our lawyer, pressed on, his voice steady. "We'd like to present key evidence, a recording from Christmas Eve, capturing the Thornfield family's insults and psychological abuse toward Luna." He played the audio Phoenix had secretly recorded. Cassius's voice boomed, cold and cruel. "She's just faking depression to dodge her duties." Then Vivian's, a woman who can't have kids, even if she eats well, is useless. And Seraphina's sarcastic. She can't even manage to give birth. The courtroom fell silent, only faint whispers breaking through. I looked at Luna, saw her shrink, as if those words stabbed her all over again. But the Thornfield's lawyer jumped up, objecting. "That recording is illegal. Made without consent. It violates privacy rights." The judge nodded, his voice dry. "The recording is inadmissible." I felt the ground open beneath me, clutching the chair to keep from collapsing. The recording, the clearest proof of the Thornfield's cruelty, tossed out on a technicality. Murmurs filled the room. Some gasped in disbelief. Others shook their heads, confused. I looked at Phoenix, his head bowed, fists trembling on his knees. Luna hid her face in her hands, shoulders shaking as she fought back tears. I wanted to lose it, to rush the judge's bench and demand justice, but I knew in that room justice wasn't on our side. Judge Reginald sat there, his gaze calm but arrogant, like he'd known this would happen. I squeezed Luna's hand, trying to give her strength, though I felt defeated myself. After a week of grueling trial days, the final verdict came. I sat in the Boise courthouse holding Luna's hand, her cold, trembling fingers in mine. All week I'd tried to stay strong, but every night, back at my small apartment, my heart ached with anguish and helplessness. Luna sat beside me, eyes red from sleepless nights, her face pale like life had been drained from her. I gripped her hand, trying to pass her some courage, though I was trembling too. Cassius strode into the room, adjusting his tie like it was just another day. Vivian, his mother, smoothed her dress and sat upright, lips painted deep red, a confident smile on her face like she already knew the outcome. Serafina, in a flashy outfit, shot us a scornful look. Judge Reginald stood behind Cassius, imposing, his gaze hard, reminding us the Thornfield family always had everything under control. Phoenix was in the spectator section, still in his police uniform. His eyes were steady but couldn't hide his worry. He gave me a slight nod, a silent promise he'd be there no matter what. I returned a grateful look, comforted by his presence. But when the judge, a middle-aged man with an expressionless face, entered, a chill ran down my spine. The air grew heavy, like everyone braced for an inevitable verdict. The judge spoke, his voice dry and firm. The court grants the divorce request of the plaintiff, Luna Brightwell, and the defendant, Cassius Thornfield. Those words sparked a ray of hope inside me. Luna broke into silent tears, tears streaming down her cheeks. I squeezed her hand, urging her to stay calm and listen. The divorce was what I wanted for Luna, a chance to escape the Thornfields' cruel cage. But I knew the ruling wasn't the end. The judge continued, his voice monotonous like reading a report. However, the court does not recognize the claims of domestic abuse due to insufficient legal evidence. As for assets, since Cassius Thornfield contributed more to the marriage's upkeep, the court awards him the majority of shared property. Those words hit like a hammer to my chest. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. No recognition of domestic abuse, insufficient evidence. I remembered the Christmas Eve recording, Cassius, Vivian, and Serafina's cruel words discarded over a technicality. I thought of Luna's medical records, the bank receipts, all twisted by the Thornfields' lawyers into evidence against us. Then it hit me. Judge Reginald, with his past as a judge and deep ties in the judicial system, had rigged it. I looked at him, saw him tilt his head slightly, that smug smile still on his lips. It was all fixed. They'd manipulated the ruling, and Luna and I were just pawns in their game. I couldn't hold back anymore. I shot to my feet, my voice breaking with rage and pain. This is so unfair. This isn't justice. My shout echoed, silencing the room. Luna grabbed my hand, eyes wide with panic, but I didn't stop. You saw how they treated my daughter. You heard what she endured, and you still dare say there was no abuse. You dare take everything from her. A guard approached, his voice firm. Ma'am, please sit down or I'll have to ask you to leave. I glared at him, then at the judge who sat there, face blank like my words meant nothing. I sat, hands trembling, feeling the world crumble beneath me. Cassius turned, locked eyes with me, and flashed a mocking smile, adjusting his tie like he'd won a grand victory. Vivian and Serafina nudged each other, giggling under their breath, making sure I heard. That laughter was a knife plunging deep into my heart. Judge Reginald nodded slowly, his gaze calm, like this was just another case he'd pulled strings on. I looked at them all, one by one, my blood boiling. They hadn't just stolen Luna's justice. They'd stolen my faith in a system I once thought was fair. Luna covered her face with her hands, her body shaking, her muffled sobs, tearing me apart. I wanted to hug her, tell her everything would be okay, but no words came. The judge's words echoed in my head like a sentence, not just for Luna, but for me. Phoenix in the back stood abruptly, glaring at the Thornfields. I saw veins bulging in his arms, fists clenched like he was holding back a storm of rage. I signaled him to stay calm, though I wanted to scream and break everything in that room. The judge slammed his gavel, his voice sharp. Order. The session is over. Everyone may leave. The gavel sound was a final period, but for me it was the start of a new pain. People began to rise, voices murmuring, papers shuffling. But I stayed, holding Luna tightly, her trembling shoulders and sobs breaking me inside. I wanted to comfort her, but my throat closed like words were useless against this pain. The unjust ruling didn't just strip Luna of assets. It took the last shred of my belief that the system would protect her. Cassius sauntered over, his posture smug like he'd won a major victory. He leaned close to my ear, whispering mockingly, See, Zara, I told you, don't fight me. You're just a useless old woman. He flashed a crooked smile, eyes gleaming with triumph, then turned to leave like Luna and I weren't worth his time. His words were gasoline on the fire of my rage. My blood surged, veins pulsing. I clenched my fist so hard it hurt, my body taut like a drawn bow, ready to snap. I wanted to lunge to land a punch on that arrogant face to pay him back for everything he'd done to my daughter. After years as a taekwondo coach, I'd learned restraint, but in that moment, all my barriers crumbled. I took a step forward, heart pounding, ready to do something I'd regret. But Phoenix rushed in front of me, eyes blazing, lips tight, fist clenched like he was about to unleash it on Cassius. I saw my own fury in him, an uncontainable outrage at the injustice. The courtroom buzzed, voices rose. Are they going to fight? A cop throwing punches in court. Some pulled out phones, camera flashes lighting up the tension. A journalist in the corner raised his camera, eyes hungry for a scandal. Cassius turned, startled for a moment, but quickly regained his defiance. He smirked coldly. Go ahead, hit me. I'll make sure you lose everything. Who do you think you are? Just a low-life cop. He stepped closer, taunting, certain Phoenix wouldn't dare touch him. Phoenix's fist trembled, his breathing heavy, eyes red. I knew he could do something irreversible. Suddenly, Luna broke free from my arm, ran to Phoenix, and clung to his arm, sobbing, her voice broken. No, please don't do it. I don't want you or Mom to become violent like him. I just want peace. I just want to keep living. Her cry tore through the air, silencing the room. I saw tears stream down Luna's face, her thin hands gripping Phoenix like he was her last anchor. Phoenix froze, breathing hard, his fiery eyes slowly dimming. His fist trembled, rigid for a moment, then slowly loosened, dropping to his side. He bowed his head, lips tight, fighting to contain the rage consuming him. Camera clicks echoed, flashes highlighting Luna clinging to Phoenix, Cassius standing smugly in front. Some in the room, maybe unaware of the case, began to sob. A soft murmur of crying rose, like Luna's pain had pierced them. I looked around. A woman wiping tears, a man shaking his head in sorrow. But the Thornfields stood unmoved. Vivian and Serafina whispered to each other, cold smiles on their lips. Judge Reginald nodded slightly, his authoritative air intact, like everything was still under his control. The judge slammed his gavel, his voice cold. Order. If this disruption continues, I'll have guards clear the room. The gavel sound was a warning, snapping everyone back to reality. I stepped forward, took Luna, and hugged her tightly. She kept crying, her body trembling in my arms like a lost child. Phoenix stood beside us, head bowed, lips tight, like he blamed himself for not doing more. I placed a hand on his shoulder, nodding gently, letting him know I understood and was grateful he was there. Cassius adjusted his tie, turned and walked off, his steps heavy with triumph. Vivian and Serafina followed, their cold laughter another knife in my chest. The room slowly emptied, leaving just me, Luna, and Phoenix. 3 people sharing the same bitter lump in our throats. I hugged Luna tighter, feeling her weak breath against my shoulder. Mom, she whispered, voice breaking. I don't want to fight anymore. I'm tired. Can we just go home? Those words tore my heart apart. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay, that I'd keep fighting, but my throat closed and no words came. I led Luna out of the courtroom, Phoenix walking silently beside us, his gaze steady. The faint Boise sunlight streamed through the windows, but it couldn't warm my heart. I knew today's ruling wasn't just a loss. It was a declaration of war. The Thornfields may have won in court, but I wouldn't let them win in Luna's life. I looked at her, her red eyes holding a tiny spark, like a flicker of hope, however small. For that spark I swore I wouldn't give up. In the days after the trial, Boise seemed to stir with an undercurrent. Local news started talking. Bold headlines hit the front pages. Thornfield trial, justice bought. Reading those words, My heart pounded like they voiced our pain. Luna's and mine. On social media, the video of Luna clinging to Phoenix in the courtroom spread fast. The image of my daughter, eyes red, voice breaking, begging Phoenix not to become violent, touched many hearts. Comments flooded with outrage. The Thornfields think they can control everything. Luna deserves better than this. Sitting in our small apartment reading those words, I felt a bit of comfort, though the court had turned its back on us. The community's voice was starting to side with Luna. The Thornfields, despite their legal win, began to feel the cost. I heard Judge Reginald's old colleagues whispered behind his back rumors of how he'd used his influence to bend justice. Cassius, dubbed the lawyer of injustice, became a target of online criticism. The prestige the family flaunted was crumbling like a sand castle swept by waves. I didn't revel in it, but I felt a sliver of justice, not from the courts, but from the people's voice. I brought Luna to live with me in my small apartment, lit by the warm yellow glow of lamps, family photos on the walls. Each morning I got up early to make her breakfast. Sometimes pancakes with maple syrup, other times just scrambled eggs with toast. Luna sat slowly at the table, cradling a mug of hot tea, staring out the window where faint sunlight slipped between Boise's rooftops. Some days I saw silent tears roll down her cheeks like raindrops. But I knew slowly Luna was healing. Each day she spoke a little more, her eyes less empty than before. I didn't push her. I just stayed by her side. A mother ready to shield her daughter from any storm. Phoenix became a vital part of our lives. He'd stop by, sometimes with a small bouquet of poinsettias, other times with donuts from the corner bakery. Each visit lit Luna up a little, like his presence was medicine for her soul. One afternoon Phoenix, a bit nervous, handed Luna a small box. Inside was a keychain shaped like a taekwondo uniform. The same symbol I'd taught him and my other students. "You don't have to be strong right away," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But you can start over little by little like Ms. Zara did." Luna took the keychain, frozen, her eyes shining with emotion. She pressed her lips, holding back tears, then nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice small but full of feeling. I watched from a distance, silent, feeling a weight lift off my chest. For years, Luna had been belittled, called useless. Now someone saw her true worth, valued her not for what she could do, but for who she was. I turned away, wiping a tear from my cheek, not wanting Luna to see me vulnerable. One evening, as the sunset bathed the apartment in gold, Luna sat across from Phoenix on the couch. Her head was bowed, hands twisting the edge of her sweater, voice trembling. "Phoenix, I might never be able to have kids. If that disappoints you." She stopped like she feared those words would ruin everything. I was in the kitchen pretending to wash dishes, but my heart stopped, waiting for Phoenix's reply. He smiled, a warm, steady smile, took her hands and looked her in the eyes. "I don't need that, Luna. You're already my family." Those words were a gust of warm air, melting the cold, lingering in my chest. I heard them with a lump in my throat, eyes blurring. For years, Luna had been humiliated, treated as a failed wife for not having children. Now someone told her she was enough, that she deserved love just for being herself. I turned my face, letting tears fall silently, my heart full of gratitude too big for words. Easter came and I took Luna by the hand to walk through Boise's main square like when she was a little girl, skipping happily down lit-up streets. The square was alive with children's laughter and the smell of fresh-baked pies from food stalls. Luna wore a light sweater, her hair tied up, and for the first time in months I saw her smile. A radiant spring sun smile. "Mom," she said softly, "I miss these days. I miss when you taught me to make apple pie. When you told me about your taekwondo matches." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "I miss them too, sweetheart. And I'll always be here to make more memories with you." As we sat on a wooden bench watching kids play by the fountain, a simple but profound truth hit me. Justice in courtrooms can be twisted, bought by power and money. But the justice of the heart, love, respect, resilience, no one can touch that. Luna, though she'd lost so much, was finding herself day by day, step by step. And I, a mother who once felt powerless, now knew my greatest strength wasn't in punches thrown in the ring, but in my love for my daughter. Phoenix showed up with a bag of warm churros, handed one to Luna, and they laughed and chatted like old friends. I watched, my heart full of hope. Luna might never forget the scars the Thornfields left, but she was learning to move forward, to love herself, to open up to those who truly valued her. And me at 65, after fighting so many battles, I knew the fight for Luna's happiness was the most meaningful of all. This story is fictional, but draws on real-life experiences. Names and places have been changed to protect those involved. We share it not to judge, but in hopes someone will pause and think about how many mothers suffer silently in their own homes. I'm genuinely curious. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you stay silent for peace? Or would you dare to face it all to reclaim your voice? I want to know what you think, because every story is a candle that can light someone's path. God always blesses. Thanks for staying until the end.